I am Olivia. I am with you every Saturday from 10 a.m. on SpiceFM. And you can actually share your tributes to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II using our socials. SpiceFM KE. But now to welcoming the United Kingdom Deputy High Commissioner to Kenya, Josephine Gauld. Welcome to Double O Direct.
Thank you very much.
It's nice to have you here.
Nice to be here.
You've actually been here virtually for several months because you made that recording for me. Yeah, that you're listening to SpiceFM and listening to Double O Direct with Olivia Otieno. Do you remember?
I do.
Odd request came out of nowhere.
Yeah, but it was an easy one to do.
Well, you know, we are in mourning. The President Uhuru announced that Kenya will be undergoing 3 days of mourning. Our flags are at half mast because we want to mark the passing of Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And I know that it's a bit of it's a difficult time, you know, because there's so much change happening. You have a new prime minister, you know, you have a new monarch now. You have longest serving monarch having passed. What is the general mood currently, you'd say, in the UK?
I think it's been a really amazing time to see everyone come together.
Yes.
There's so many tributes to Her Majesty the Queen being made in Parliament. They had a special sitting all day on Friday for all the different members of Parliament to talk about their own personal reflections and experience. And a lot of the tributes have been really intensely personal. So there's what she represented as the head of state and the head of Commonwealth, but also all of those personal connections and how she touched people's individual life.
That is incredible. And I know people are wondering, who is this Josephine Gauld? Who is this UK Deputy High Commissioner? I know we're going to be circling back to tributes and to understanding the legacy that Queen Elizabeth II leaves behind. But first to understanding who you are and maybe your background in diplomacy.
Well, I've been here in Kenya for a year and a half now. And before that, I was the British ambassador in Côte d'Ivoire and West Africa. And I've been in diplomacy for about 20 years now. So I've worked in Democratic Republic of Congo, Nigeria, Côte d'Ivoire. I've spent some time in France and now Kenya.
What makes a London girl want to join the Foreign Office?
It's exciting. You get to see the world. You get to have some amazing experiences. It's a real privilege. You get to represent your country and, you know, talk about the things you like about your country, and also meet all sorts of amazing and fascinating people around the world.
Live stream on your phone, computer or smart TV on the homepage standardmedia.co.ke. Technotronic, pump up the jam. This is SpiceFM. Got some golden Tina Turner, Whitney Houston, General Defoe. No, Billy Bell. Let me ask you, Josephine Gauld.
Billy Bell is nice.
Like Billy Bell?
We
do some Billy Bell.
We're going to have female artists.
Who are the female Congolese artists that you listen to?
She's probably the most prominent one.
Yes.
Yeah. Otherwise, there's a lot of Kofi and a lot of Papa Wemba and.
Yeah, I can understand that. I can relate. Mumbi, get on that. Yeah, I am with the British Deputy High Commissioner Josephine Gauld. Please highlight some of the bilateral areas of engagement that Kenya has with the UK.
So obviously, the kind of UK-Kenya relationship is really broad. We work together on so many different areas. So we have a partnership, kind of an agreed partnership, which we've structured into 5 different areas. So we cover climate, prosperity, security.
With regards to climate, now that you've mentioned that, we have a severe drought currently in the country. And millions of Kenyans are facing hunger, malnutrition, starvation. Do you have any specifics on how we are working together with regards to climate?
Yeah, and so we've got, there's sort of the obvious and the immediate kind of thing, which is supporting the humanitarian response, just to really try and help reach the populations who are worst affected by that. And that's, that's the real bread and butter basics of making sure people try and get access to food and looking at those kind of things. And then in the longer term, it's some of the climate and environmental work is looking at adaptation and resilience to climate change.
Yes. Sorry, you had mentioned that we were collaborating on several areas.
Yeah, and so other areas, one of my favorite areas is what we call our people-to-people links. So that covers a lot of the kind of the really personal connections. So there's lots of university collaborations, and some of these date back, for a long time. And then we have some scholarships for students at the moment. So one of our big programs is called the Chevening program.
Yes.
And so that is a particular program for master's students. So it's people who've done their undergraduate studies, had a couple of years of work experience, and then they can apply for a Chevening scholarship.
Do you understand, what are the criteria for selection? Do you have any other specifics on that?
Yeah, so for the Chevening program in particular, is what we're looking for is sort of leadership potential and people's vision, because we want to give people this scholarship and that they will come back to Kenya and apply those skills that they've learned.
Is it a 1-year scholarship?
It's a 1-year, yes, because it's for a 1-year master's program, but it's a very comprehensive scholarship. So it covers travel, living costs, the university fees, and then a bit of, an extra money just to get by. So it enables people to really go and study and concentrate on their studies.
Are you only eligible for achieving master's scholarship if you already have a placement in a university in the UK?
So you can do it contemporaneously.
Yes.
So the deadlines for applying for the scholarship is the 1st of November.
Okay, so you have just more than a month.
Yeah, so just more than a month. So what happens often is people find out the courses that they're interested in.
Yes.
The student needs to find the course that they want to study. They can find the courses, put in the application for the scholarship, and do the application for the course as well. So usually people say that they're interested in about 3 courses. They apply to the universities, see what comes back, and the application process takes a few months. So there's time for them to get to the answers.
When does the academic year start?
So it's for the next academic year. So it's starting in sort of September, October time. At the moment, when we're accepting deadline applications at the moment for people who want to start their studies in September, October 2023.
Fantastic. So apart from Chevening, any other opportunities for students in the UK?
The other big one is called the Commonwealth Scholarship Programme, and that's run by the British Council. And that one covers master's programmes as well, and also PhDs. So that can be a longer one. We've just waved goodbye to a cohort who have just setting off now for the UK. We've just sent off about 40 students who are going to do Chevening programs as well, who are starting now, sort of this month, next month.
Yes.
So but those are the 2 big programs that we have.
Fantastic. And all of these are comprehensive, meaning your travel, your accommodation, your tuition, all of that is covered.
Yeah, absolutely. So we want people who've won these scholarships. I mean, they're already, sort of the brilliant ones, and so we really want them to be able to have the kind of the time and the space, and to be, feel comfortable that they can, and secure enough that they can just really focus on their studies and getting the most out of the opportunity.
One thing that has always been asked of me is, what about opportunities post-education? For example, whilst you're in the UK, one thing they wanted to find out is, are you allowed to work as a student if you're studying there?
Yes. Yeah. So there is. So whilst, and this is, anyone who's there as a student, they can. There's a sort of a limited amount of time you can work per week. So you can't get a full-time job, but you can have a part-time job or getting some experience. And what we do now for people who study in the UK is that they have an option with their student visa to extend and stay on. So they can stay on for a couple of years after to work, which we think is a great way for people to get some more work experience. And so initially they have to apply whilst they're still studying, and then they can stay on. So they don't need a job offer to be able to stay on. And then they can start applying for jobs, and they can do any kind of job they like.
Yes.
It doesn't necessarily have to be a kind of career-focused one, although that's probably obviously the most interesting.
Yes,
certainly for their parents, I think they want to be encouraging them to get a really good career job, because we've got there's quite a lot of job opportunities, quite a lot of internships. So it's quite a good way for people to get that first foot on the kind of career ladder.
Yes.
Because often employers are going to want to see a CV which has the studies and then also some work experience. So that's why we've added that to the student visas as an opportunity.
With regards to recognition of academic qualifications attained in Kenya and looking for jobs in the UK, do you have anything to share or any light to add to that? Because there's some, for example, my pediatrician, good example. Him and his family are moving to the US. He said, Olivia, I'm going to have to go back and study because they're not going to accept my qualifications as a pediatrician here in the US. So with regards to qualifications and degrees from Kenyan institutions, does the UK recognize them, or what gap must be filled for that?
So there is a sort of system of equivalencies particularly for kind of high school studies to enable people to study enter a
Yes.
university course.
Yes.
And that's really global. So, we'll look at kind of French systems or American systems, Kenyan systems, and there's a sort of comparative, because everyone's got their own system. So you need to be able to understand what, how they apply to the admission criteria for different study programs.
Yes.
And then when it comes to sort of professional work, that really comes down to the different professional bodies. And I was talking to a Kenyan friend a couple of days ago who was saying her son has just been studying in the UK and he wants to come back to Kenya and to develop his law, to start practicing law.
Yes.
And he's going to have to do some extra courses when he comes back to Kenya. So I
go
think
to Kenya School of Law, for example.
Exactly.
Yes.
So it works both ways.
Yes.
I think there's always, and it's very specific to the different type of things. There's often a little catch up. I've got another friend who's a vet here.
Yes.
And she was just going to have to do a couple of little extra bits
Yes.
when she went to the UK to ensure that she could then practice. To get sometimes you just have to redo the exams, or you have to apply for the professional license to operate in a certain field.
Brilliant. When it comes to career opportunities, there's been calls, for years and years now for Kenyan nurses, medical professionals, for example. But outside of medicine, are there other opportunities that you're aware about or that you can highlight for Kenyan professionals seeking employment in the UK?
So on our sort of government, we have one big website called gov.uk, which really contains everything. It's a really great go-to site.
Yeah.
And there's always a list there of specialist professions. So when we're looking for particular professions, that list is always published there. There were a lot of headlines about the nurses.
Yes.
And that's a very specific program that we set up because so Kenya trains a lot of nurses.
Yes.
And doesn't
and to a very high standard.
To a very high standard. So there's a great nursing training in Kenya, but the health system in Kenya can't absorb all of the nurses who are graduating every year. So there's more nurses than there's actually employment opportunities, and we are quite desperate for nurses as well. So it felt like it was a kind of happy mix. So we've been very careful. We're trying not to do any kind of brain drain. So we've been working with sort of newly qualified nurses. We're trying not to avoid recruiting any of the highly specialist nurses. We want we know you need those guys.
Yes.
So but we are helping to provide that some extra job opportunities for some of the qualified and trained Kenyan nurses who don't currently have a job, and hopefully they're gaining some really useful professional experience, and then I suspect a lot of them will probably want to come back and work as nurses in Kenya in due course.
Now I'm speaking to the UK Deputy High Commissioner Josephine Gauld. Of course, we're paying tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And maybe, Josephine, you can just give me an overview of Her Majesty and her reign. I know it's 70 years. It's going to be here until 2 p.m. next Thursday, but no, just an overview.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, obviously Kenya was a really significant country for her because she was in Kenya with her husband, the Duke of Edinburgh.
Whom you met.
Whom I've met. I also I was lucky enough to meet the Queen herself as well.
Wow.
And they were here on a tour in 1952. So it was in February 1952 they were here when her father died. So she got the news when she was here in Kenya that she had become queen. Mm-hmm. So that was really significant. And in those days, obviously, what was really tricky was how to convey the message, because making long distance phone calls was very difficult.
Yes.
And so it took quite a few hours before she heard. In fact, she got it via the media. So it was one of the press correspondents that heard the news on one of the kind of news wire flashes, and he was the one who then passed that on to the Queen's private secretary, and then the Duke of Edinburgh broke the news to her whilst they were staying up in the Aberdares.
Wow.
So that's where it all started, and then she had to get back. And also in those days, the aeroplanes weren't just hop on a flight and it goes direct.
Yes.
They flew from here. They flew from here to Uganda, and then they were stuck in a storm. So they got delayed for a few hours, and then she eventually got back to the UK a couple of days later, and was the Queen from then on. So 70 years. She just celebrated her Platinum Jubilee a few months ago.
Yes.
So that's her longest ever monarch in the UK.
Yes.
And it feels unlikely we'll ever see another monarch reign for quite so long, because she ascended to the throne when she was only 25.
Indeed.
So her son Prince Charles is now now he's King Charles III, and he's starting his reign as king in his 70s.
I remember texting you and saying, Josephine, where is my QBP invite? And you telling me, Olivia, don't worry, 00. Next year we're on.
Yes.
Now look, there's no more QBP for me.
It won't be QBP. It'll be King's birthday party.
KBP.
So we're having to adjust to getting to learn to say King. Our national anthem has changed. So we always said God Save the Queen.
Yes.
Now we have to say God Save the King.
Yes.
So many things. I mean, for so many of us, our entire lives, we've only ever seen one queen. So we've never had a change of monarch.
Does currency change?
Currency changes, so the money will change gradually. Okay. As we change. The stamps will change.
Yes.
And the thing which I've always been interested in our embassies, we always have all of our, the china and the knives and forks all have ER stamped on them, which is for Elizabeth Regina.
Yes.
And now we will be changing those to CR.
Can
Charles
I buy
Rex.
the old ones?
I don't know.
I think there'll be a sale pretty soon.
I think we'll probably just, because we're quite prudent with our money, us Brits. We've got our sort of Scottish, stereotypical.
Yep.
So I think we'll probably just wait for some of it to wear out, but we'll be having to replace all these little bits and pieces.
Yes.
There's quite a lot of things on our post boxes in the UK. Most of them have ER stamped on them. There's lots of there's that kind of insignia is all over everyday life in the UK.
So now, just taking it a step back after her coronation, in the early years of her reign, any particular events stand out?
Well, I think it's really when you think how long ago it was. When she came to power, the Prime Minister of the UK was Winston Churchill. So she just on Tuesday received her 15th Prime Minister. Wow. I think she's done. She's seen 13 or 14 American presidents.
Wow!
She's been there through so many changes.
Yes.
She was there through independence of so many countries. Through the Commonwealth, I think was about 7 countries when she ascended to the throne.
Yes.
Now it's 56. So it's been some really transformational times. Europe was just recovering from the Second World War. Yes. Which now is, feels like really, a long time ago in history. Yes. So she's seen that all these inventions. But she's also been sort of at the cutting edge of it, just keeping on changing and adapting. So her coronation was the first one, which was ever like a major public broadcast event,
yes.
Kind of live public broadcast. Yes. Before then, it was very much studio recordings, and it was watched by millions around the world. Certainly in the UK, people went to buy their first television sets just to be able to watch the coronation. Yes, which is, now.
I know.
A TV is so kind of standard.
As long as you have a laptop, you're good to go.
Yeah. So she's been there through thick and thin, and she's been, I think for us in the UK, she's been this kind of permanent stability and presence in everybody's lives.
Yes, like an anchor.
Yeah. So whether you have any, you don't necessarily have sort of direct contact, but she's just this figure. Obviously, with a constitutional monarchy, she never said, publicly, she never kind of gave political views or anything like that. Yes. But I know all the prime ministers have always talked about how important it was to them. Every week they would have an audience with her. Yes. And they would be able to go and talk about all sorts of things because she was, very, very well informed and on everything that was happening around the world, really. Yes. And she was almost, for them, she was their safe space. So non-partisan, amazing wisdom. Yes. Decades of sort of life experience and just exposure to every world leader. Yes. She'd met them all, so indeed. She knew them all. So she really had an amazing contribution to make, or and advice, and just to give people a bit of the prime minister's a bit of a steer when you're leading a country. It's who do you talk to? And I think for the British prime ministers, it's been the Queen who's been there as their kind of guide.
With regards to the Commonwealth, you brought that up. There's been some mixed emotions, obviously. There have been people who, as you said, she was not giving in her political views, but have seen her, as you said, as a mainstay. So as someone to focus on with regards to how they're feeling and how they're managing this current situation. As you said, the Commonwealth was only 7 countries when she ascended to the throne, and now it's 56, going on 57. How would you How would you sort of describe her feelings or her emotions, if any, right, with regards to the major political changes that were happening around the globe with regards to the British Empire at that time? I don't know if anything has been written or anything had been said with every new country gaining independence or with countries fighting for their independence. Have there been any public record of, what her sort of thoughts and contributions were to that?
What I know is that she really cared deeply about the Commonwealth. I mean, it was something I think that she was, really, really committed to. Just finding a way of bringing everyone together. Obviously, the history is complicated around that, but to find the positives. So,
because she inherited it. A lot of people want to put a lot of blame, but at the end of the day, she was not an instigator. You inherit a situation that you're in, and you have to make the best of it. And of course, you're no longer. You're a constitutional monarch, as you said. So it's not, the onus really isn't on you per se. So moving aside from that, yes, she wanted to make the best of it.
Yeah, and she's, we've just had the Commonwealth Games in Birmingham a few months ago, and I think that's a really good example of one of the best things, and probably one of the most visible things of what the Commonwealth means today to many people, in that you have a celebration of all the different talents from around the world. It's a group of people who have common communication through English.
Yes.
We have a lot of similarities in terms of, things like the way our legal systems work. There's a sort of cultural understanding as well, I think, amongst the Commonwealth nations. And so I know that Her Majesty the Queen was always really positive. I think she visited all of the Commonwealth countries apart from, she didn't manage to make it to Cameroon or to Kigali, but I think otherwise all of the Pacific Islands, all the other Commonwealth countries were places that she managed to visit.
What about the royal family as it stands now? Of course, King Charles has ascended to the throne. We have the Queen Consort. What are the dynamics of the royal family? Of course, she leaves a very different royal family than the one she was in when she ascended to the throne.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's a very different world that everyone is operating in. So the King made his first address to the nation last night.
Yes.
And it was really moving. He managed to combine a very personal tribute to his mother and the Queen, and also show his kind of commitment and dedication to now trying to take on this new role for him, and sort of pledging his that he will do his utmost in the role, and it's going to be it's going to be fascinating to see how that works. He's always been really passionate about environment and climate. He was a real early advocate of that before the rest of the world had really woken up to.
And conservation.
So that that now is such a high priority with climate change. We were just talking about the trouble of the droughts here in the Horn of Africa. So that's something he's always been a champion, and perhaps we'll see him continuing.
Most recently, he was in Rwanda.
He was at the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting a few months ago, which Rwanda hosted, bringing together all of the different Commonwealth member states.
Anything in particular stand out for you that came out of that meeting?
It was another one. I mean, it just shows the diversity of the Commonwealth, I think, because I know, say the British Council were doing a lot about Commonwealth fashion.
Yes.
And
it's promoting a lot of Kenyan designers.
There was a lot of Kenyan designers. There was some amazing stuff around that. There were some really exciting education projects, bringing together classrooms from different countries all around the Commonwealth as well, and enabling all the kind of young people to learn about each other. And then there was, the high politics as well. But for me, the standout moments were really more the kind of human aspects. Yeah.
Continue my conversation with the British Deputy High Commissioner Josephine Gauld as we pay tribute to Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. And there's a very interesting quote from a Christmas broadcast from 1966. It has been women who have breathed gentleness and care into the harsh progress of mankind. Now, Josephine, the Queen was a symbol for feminism, and if not just feminism, let's say women in leadership globally. What do you have to say with regards to that?
I totally agree. I mean, even without saying much directly, she could be just her presence there, and her as being such a visible and high-profile female leader, I think has been really important to just proving that women can. I think in the history of the UK, in fact, some of our longest, probably most successful leaders have been women. We had Queen Victoria was the second longest running now monarch that we ever had. So it's that. And some of the famous ones, Queen Elizabeth I as well.
Because you hear about the Elizabethan era, you hear about the Victoria era. You don't hear much about the men.
No, the men. A lot of the men came and went. Maybe they went into battle. So I think it's really significant from that, and just we've seen such transformations for women around the world in the time that she has been.
Especially women's rights, sexual and reproductive rights.
More countries gave women the vote in that time. Sexual reproductive health, absolutely. Mm-hmm. So it's been really important. And then there's some lovely, I think, some of the tributes I've mentioned earlier that on Friday, our members of Parliament in the UK were talking about their stories and their reflections on the Queen. And there was one MP who said that she'd been had been going for a very tough phase. Obviously, politics is, it still can be very misogynistic and it can be pretty brutal on women.
Yes.
And, we often hear that about women when they're running for Parliament, that the personal attacks are absolutely brutal.
Yes. And even the physical attacks at times.
The physical attacks, the threats are, and that's it's worldwide. We have it, speaking to Kenyan female politicians as well, they've got some pretty tough tales to tell.
Yes.
And social media in particular is really difficult for them. And this female British MP said she just received an invitation from the Queen to go and have tea.
Wow.
And she said that personal, just that the Queen had noticed.
Yes.
And just invited her over, had just moved her enormously.
Yes.
And it was just being there. I think that presence for women was really important.
That is amazing. With regards to projects with a female focus that the UK government is involved with here in Kenya, is supporting funding. Any highlights on that?
Well, women and girls, and what we're doing from women and girls is it's really significant for us, and we're trying to see what more we can do in that. So our new Prime Minister in the UK, Liz Truss, previously she was our Foreign Secretary,
yes,
and she's been talking a lot about the importance of doing more for women and girls around the world. We have a Development Minister, Vicky Ford, who's also a woman who is also equally passionate about seeing what more we can do for women and girls. So we're trying to make sure that all of our projects, all of our interventions and all of the support we give here have a dimension which is really focusing on the impact for women and girls.
Any particular platform that anyone listening can go on to find out more about these projects? Perhaps they run an organization that is helping support women and girls here in Kenya, and they want to find out how they can work in collaboration with the UK government or with the FCDO in particular.
So we will always, we will publish the reports. We publish annual reports. We'll publish what we're doing. And then in normal times, we'll also have a lot of our, our own kind of social media streams will be covering some of that activity. At the moment, we're very much focusing on commemorating the Queen and Her Majesty's lifetime. Yes. But in due course, we'll be picking those things up again. So again, just looking through our sort of website, there's a lot of history and background on the kind of things that we've been doing. And during the COVID pandemic, we were trying to make sure that the impact, whatever we could do to support the sort of the impact and soften the impact on women who were often, trying to look after families and can be often in livelihoods which can be quite vulnerable to the kind of shock that we felt with the pandemic.
Yes.
So we were doing some tech work, for example, just helping women develop their tech and IT skills so that they could find jobs, which you can often work remotely or flexibly or work from home to work on sort of in the tech industry. That's just one small example.
Anything in the sports sector?
Sports, we're always trying to, we would love to do more
I
sports.
know you're an equestrian yourself. You play polo every week.
Indeed. And as the High Commission, we're always looking for ideas of how we can do more in sports. It's always a bit of a challenge to try and find how we do. But we've done some great things with the Kenyan Olympic Committee and around the Commonwealth Games. I participated in the baton. We had a baton. It was the Queen's baton relay for the Commonwealth Games, and we had to run around the Arboretum with the baton, which then travelled to every single country in the Commonwealth.
Oh, that is brilliant!
Which was great fun with Amina Mohammed.
SpiceFM Olivia Otieno 94.4 in Nairobi. We are live streaming on the homepage standardmedia.co.ke. I am absolutely loving all the tributes that are coming in for Her Majesty Queen Elizabeth II. You know, at the end of the day, 70 years is no easy feat. And so much changed. So much of the world changed. Rights for women improved astronomically. You know, we have a voice now, we have the vote, we have women in leadership. So much happened. And I'm here with Josephine Gauld, the UK Deputy High Commissioner to Kenya. And we've been talking about this amazing woman and her phenomenal reign. Josephine, in a nutshell, what is your message and what have you received in this period?
I think what's been so touching is to see a lot of the tributes. I mean, there's tributes coming in from all around the world. We have visit the royal palaces. They have a condolence book online, so lots of people are being able to share their sort of messages direct.
Question. There's one online as well?
Yes.
And what's the URL? How do we get to it?
Royal.uk.
Royal.uk. Then you can sign the
and
book.
There's an online condolence book there.
Okay, that's fantastic.
People can sign on there.
Yes.
And we've been really touched as well by the messages we've had in Kenya, and the president's announcement yesterday that Kenya would half-mast flags in Kenya as a tribute for the
3 days.
for the death of Her Majesty the Queen. And we've had some, great messages from so many different people. And because there's a lot of people have had some kind of personal link with the royal family or connection in Kenya, as they have had with Kenya.
Speaking of the flags, though, just to digress slightly, you have a new prime minister. And you have, of course, now the king, but you have quite a long mourning period. So will the flags in the UK be back up momentarily and then come back down? How will that work?
So today there's something called the Succession Council,
yes,
which has just taken place this morning.
Yes,
and that is it's a very ancient historic tradition. We have the Privy Council meets, and they will declare the new sovereign. So King Charles III, although he was automatically became the king on the death of his mother,
yes,
this council is the official kind of declaration of him becoming the sovereign.
yes.
And so there will, for example, at the High Commission, we'll be putting our flags back up this afternoon and for a little bit of tomorrow before we lower them again. So we're putting them up to recognise the accession of the new sovereign.
Yes.
And then we'll return to the period of national mourning.
And how long is that period?
It'll last until the funeral, the state funeral, which the date hasn't yet been announced, but it'll probably be within the next week and a bit.
And then how long after that is the official coronation of King Charles
The
III?
coronation, that I haven't seen any discussions on that yet. For the Queen herself, it was well over a year after she came to the throne.
Yes.
So the coronation takes a huge amount of planning and preparation.
Okay.
So she was the Queen for a good year before she actually had the official coronation.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Josephine Gauld. Parting words to Double O Direct listeners?
Thank you very much for having me. It's been a pleasure, and enjoy the rest of the show.
SpiceFM.